it's time to hear from another distinguished leader and our very own alum, Mr. Prashant Murali Kaivar, Vice President, Supply Chain Growth and Capability at Genpact. With over 25 years of experience across manufacturing, consulting, and digital transformation, he has held leadership roles at global organizations like Toyota, GM, Tech Mahindra, and is widely recognized for his work in supply chain, sourcing, and procurement. Mr. Kaivar, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
I hope, and Professor, thanks so much for being in this keynote on the other side of the table. But it's a great pleasure being able to speak a few words when you are in the same room as I am. So thanks so much. I hope you all had a good meal, a hearty, good hearty meal. I was telling Rajiv that it will be our responsibility is to keep this session, keep you guys awake. Right? Tell me if you're feeling sleepy, you can just go out and get a coffee. I hope that doesn't happen. So how much time do I have for this session? I want to ensure, because I have a hard stop at 5. We also need to compress the panel discussions after this so that it will be 20 minutes. Oh my God. It's a far cry from the two speakers. Okay, I'll try to do something in like 20-25 minutes. And I have promised this class that I'll come back and we can have wherever you are, right? IIT Kanpur, IIT Chennai. Because I want a session from VLMP to VLMP, right? Not just somebody's coming from outside and speaking. So I was taking a walk in the morning today in the campus, and of course I was walking down the memory lane, and I was recollecting quite a few things about our life on the campus in 2009, 2010 when I was a student of VLMP, right? And that was an amazing time that I had. The air of IIM Calcutta is so different, so amazing. Nothing like this that I have experienced anywhere else in the world. Right? I think that's something that I very deeply cherish, and something very profoundly emotional the profound emotion that I have in my heart is the kind of gratitude that I have for this institute. So thanks so much once again. So I made notes of some of the great insight that we got from the session since morning, and you heard a lot about resilience, you heard a lot about agility, you heard a lot about how manufacturing is going to grow, right? And the strategic building blocks of what will constitute 2020, say 2030, 2040 as we scale new heights as a manufacturing hub. And one thing that I was, Dr. Alok Rai also talked about JIT. So one thing that came to my mind is, of course, an initial part of my journey before I joined this course was with Toyota, and it's all about just in time. And I had a similar set of suppliers when I moved from Toyota to GM, right? And they were still supplying parts JIT to us. And then I asked them, how do you still supply parts on JIT basis? So they said, it's actually JIT, but it's actually SHIT. I said, what? They said, somehow in time. Right? So I think it's very important that we design manufacturing systems, we design supply chains in a way that doesn't, it's made to happen that way. It's not that it just happens. It's by design, not by default. One of my greatest, I'll say, fortunes was that I had this opportunity of interaction with Professor 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗶𝗁 for 30 days. 10 days in this campus, 10 days at IIT Madras, 10 days in Tokyo. Right? And I remember that first interaction with Professor 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. That was a great interaction which I'll not forget in my life. So this was an icebreaker session, right? And you already know, by the way, this was an icebreaker session, and Professor 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 divided us, a 25 people group, right, into 3 people, 4 people, so on and so forth, 5 people groups. And he said, you choose your topics, make a presentation. So we made our presentation, right? And I thought I made an excellent presentation, came back to my seat, right, and I could hear applause and all that. Professor 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 said, then I said, why? I thought in my mind. He said, please. He said 5 words, which I'll not forget in my entire life. He said, get out of my class. He said this to a few of us. I was wondering why. Then he showed us pictures of all of us. Right? He has taken pictures of all of you. Right? And he showed us pictures individually, right? In the class like this. Somebody was yawning, I was actually leaning on my backrest. He said, a leader is not supposed to do that. Eyes are watching you. Eyes are behind leaders. And what you guys do is only talk, talk, talk. That's what he said. And that was a great piece of learning that I carry in my life. So the rest, as they say, is history. So that was a little bit of history. Now, if I want to extend into the future, I just want to leave a few thoughts with you. So India is on a phenomenal growth journey. I think that was also shared by a few of the other speakers in the morning. And the Indian government has a very comprehensive and ambitious plan to be 8 to 10% of the global GDP by 2040. Something like that. Now, there are experts who have seen that there are 18 key arenas where this type of growth can happen. So it's not that these are the only arenas in which the growth is going to happen, the expansion is going to happen. But I just wanted to share with you that the 18 arenas are chosen in such a way that we already have significant capability for these arenas currently, which we can use for growth in India, and we can also use it to enhance our exports. Right? On the other hand, we also have some capability which are emerging capabilities. Right? So these emerging capabilities are here, and these are strong capabilities that we find. Right? Let me talk a couple of them. Right? Auto components, where at currently, if you take a hazard a guess, what is our auto components industry number in terms of $1 billion? Okay? It's $75 billion today. Right? By 2030, it is expected to grow to 145 billion. That's the kind of growth that we're looking at. And the exports currently is 20 billion, it's going to triple by 2030 to $60 billion, so on and so forth. So there's tremendous potential here. Look at e-commerce. E-commerce is, of course, I'll speak a little bit later also about e-commerce. E-commerce is going to be around 17 to 19% of the total retail sales in India, whereas now currently it is at anywhere between 7 to 9%. Look at semiconductor, something which is very close to my heart. We have a $10 billion incentive by the government to enhance semiconductor growth in India. Future is going to have less than 10 nanometer type of chips being produced. Currently, we are having capability to go above 14 nanometer chips only, right? And 20% of the global design workforce sits now in India. So that's the strength that we have. Intel has the biggest R&D center out of Arizona. They had, now it's in Bangalore, right, for example. So we have global foundries, we have ASM, a lot of companies have growth plans in India. Tata's are expanding in 𝗘𝗺𝘃, there's going to be a big plant. And you'll see most iPhones being produced in the world are going to come from India. All the iPhones sold in the US in 2027 is going to come from India, provided some of these dynamics of Trump and tariffs play in. One more very interesting area, we have Bio2X. So Bio2X is biological feedstock that can be transformed into something which is high value and useful for us. For example, bioethanol, right? So there is a 20% blending of with fuel that is possible there, and it's called E20 mandate, which I think you might be aware of, right? So all the vehicles, including hybrids that are going to come after April of 2025, it's already started this year, should comply with the emission norms. So these are some examples and some numbers, because I've not written the numbers there, but I just shared with you, will show you that we are on a kind of correlates with what some of the other speakers also spoke about. No, but why am I showing you this? This is India's growth story, right? Expected growth story. But it is not just that. It is your story. You can shape this story, right? You can find yourself anywhere here, right? And you can create that story. And in the next 6 to 9 months of this program, you will get enough insights and the clues to help you, go on that journey. Talking about clues, my example of a clue is my first tryst with Kanban, right? I completed my engineering, mechanical engineering from Mysore in the National Institute of Engineering, and joined Toyota in 1998, right? And most of my friends were smokers, right? So I used to be a lot of passive smoking. So I used to go to this chicky shop, chai wala shop. He'll have transparent jars of biscuits and chicky, right? So that was the freshest chicky that you get, because every day, he will replenish that chicky. It's not that it's there lying there and it doesn't have an expiry date. It has to be completed. It has to be eaten. That was my first impression of Kanban, because some of these guys have 2 transparent jars. Some of them have only 1 jar. If it comes to half, it gets replenished. If it comes to 20% of the level, it gets replenished. Or 1 bottle gets completed, it gets replenished, right? So it's a fixed time. Every day a person comes at 11 o'clock, does it. Or whenever it goes to a certain level, it gets replenished, right? So it's like a fixed time variable quantity or a fixed quantity variable time kind of replenishment, right? So I think that was pretty powerful for me, because it was one of the simplest of supply chains that you could see. So the rest of my presentation is going to be, all the speakers from morning talked about some of the strategic building blocks. So I'll get a little tactical look at supply chain as a key enabler, around which the whole of manufacturing gets pivoted, right? I don't know how much time I'll have to be able to share everything that I wanted to share in supply chain, but I find myself in a very unique position. I'm very happy about that, because I have seen this JIT working in Toyota in an automotive context. I've seen it working in a telecom context. I've seen it working in a retail context. I've seen it working in a whiskey making context, and so many other contexts, right? So there is a common thread connecting all these supply chains that I just want to share a few perspectives about. Right? Now, as I have been through this journey, there was a lot of change, from the simplest supply chain that I talked about, which is the chicky replenishment. When I started my journey, maybe 27, 28 years back in 2000s, early 2000s, there was a lot of focus on being able to collaborate. The CPFR, collaborative forecasting, replenishment, collaborative planning, forecasting, and replenishment, right? Helped companies exchange data, become more receptive to change and respond in a certain way. But the focus was more on efficiency building, right? Now, by 2013, Gartner came up with a model called DDBN, where the supply and network points are in a matrix or in a certain lattice framework, so that it's called the demand-driven value network, right? Wherever there is a change in supply, in demand, you can immediately respond to that by change in tactics of supply, right? So when I look at some of those arenas that I talked about, those 18 different arenas, there is a great opportunity for us to look at supply chain as an area with key North Star capabilities that can help you make those arenas create value. It's all about value creation. It's not just about efficiency, it's about value creation, it's about building brand equity, building capabilities that will help business get more cash flow, improve bottom line, improve top line, so on and so forth. So I think some of those I'll talk about. Like one is agility, the resilience, a lot of people talked about since morning, circularity, how important it is in our context, and some perspectives on touchless and autonomous supply chains, right? You know what this is. Yeah. So what does this smile actually indicate?
From A to Z.
Yeah, so A to Z. Now, that is one. Any other thoughts? For a long, yeah.
So this is the smile of the customer when they receive
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. Right? So I'll tell you, when we started looking at agility, right, a few years back, and SCOR, there's a model called the SCOR model, Supply Chain Operations Reference Model. Maybe how many of you know that? Okay. So note it down. This is a very important, and I'll talk about supply chain. I'm not talking about business and stuff like that. That's why I said I'm getting into a little tactical level. So the SCOR model gives the standard SEOR, right? Gives a standard for some of these key drivers and metrics of supply chain maturity, right? And the earlier definition, or even now the current definition of SCOR is that when a demand increases by 25%, how many days will it take for you to meet that demand, right? That is no longer the case, because the whole definition has changed. Now when I go to an Amazon website, right, like when I hover my cursor on an item, say I want to buy a CFL, right? The engine already knows that I might be buying a CFL. It knows that I'm a man who likes to do golf, and I have my house here. I want to buy that kind of item. Everything, right? So it sends out an alert to the demand planning engine. It accesses your information, right? Are you married? Are you in Chicago? Where are you, etc. Right? It takes a decision. It says, okay, ship out 5 CFLs of 15 watts to this person, right? And then it gets onto a truck swiftly, and on the way, it is already left. I have not placed an order. I have not placed an order for these 5 CFLs. It has already left Amazon, right? Warehouse, some warehouse, right? And I place the order, and then I cancel it. Right? Then it can move to a different customer, so that a different person has put a shopping cart, and these 5 items reach him within an hour because it's already left the premises yesterday 24 hours back. Right? So that's the new definition of agility that we are talking about. Right? So Amazon has something called so this mile here actually represents more than. Can you just take a guess how many patents they have? This is called an anticipatory shipping model, and maybe they have not said how many, maybe 10%, 15% of their items are shipped out this way based on predictive analytics, right? But can you take a guess how many patents they have to be able to achieve this? Rough. How they have perfected this through so many patents in the last 25 years. Take a guess.
150.
Sorry?
150.
150 is a good number. Any other numbers? Thousands, yeah. Okay, that's a good one. They have like close to 7,000 patents for anticipatory shipping. So that's the new age agility that you are talking about, where even a 10 rupee coriander leaf, curry patta, whatever, reaches your house within a few minutes. Right? Okay. See, I was in awe of the JIT concept for a long time. Plus, Toyota does what is known as and I want to share this with you because you're all manufacturing. You know what is 𝗘𝘃𝗃𝗃 production, right? 𝗘𝘃𝗃𝗃 is, you have 100 cars to be made, so 50 are white, 30 are yellow, or whatever, blue, and 20 are black, right? You don't make 50 and 30 and 20. You make 2 of this, then 1 of this, then 1 of this, and so on and so forth. It goes on, right? So the seat manufacturer takes it to the extreme. They call it 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗃 production. That means between my production line, which is here, to the seat manufacturer, who is like just 3 kilometers away, there are like 20 trucks which are moving around because they just get one seat before that one particular, because there are 25 different varieties of seats for those 3 different types of cars. Right? So they take it to the extreme. Now I had a chance to be consulting for a lot of these whiskey making companies, right? Where, what are the key ingredients for whiskey, for a Scotch whiskey? Yeah? Barley and water, that's it, right? So they mix barley and water, mash it, and then they add yeast to it, and then you start the fermentation process. But there is a 12-year Scotch whiskey, there's a 20-year Scotch whiskey. How do you know what customers are going to buy 20 years later, 15 years later? How do you know that? And you have like a Scotch whiskey wheel with 25 different, 256 different. You have vanilla, you have pomegranate, you have chocolate flavor. This is not added into that whiskey, right? So it's all produced when actually the whiskey starts releasing. I mean, the cells in the cask start releasing, that chemical into the whiskey. So that was actually just in time, because a lot of, and that was a GI. The Scotch whiskey has a geographical indicator, right? Just like Darjeeling tea. So the oak selection, when do you select oak, how much do you roast or toast that cask, the drying time, and the warehouse maturation. Goes to the warehouse and then it starts evaporating. It's called the angel share, right? Like if it evaporates at a certain rate, it will release a certain flavor. It's not flavor that's added into the whiskey. We heard a lot about decarbonization, sustainability. I think it's very important for supply chains to pivot continuously on this, because a lot of work is going on, a lot of meaningful attention is being paid to circularity, but the kind of results that we are expecting is not happening, because I think the governance framework and the commitment that's needed by companies has to definitely go up. And I think this area is going to be a very key area for all of you in this school. Right? Because now a lot of you are in automotive. Right? How many of you are in automotive? Some of you in mining. We heard green mining, 3, 4, 5. We heard, then we have chemical industry, right? People in chemical industry. And of course, I think there have been a few people who are also into, which is the other area I'm missing from this? Actually, you shared with me in the batch. Right? So going forward, I think each of you would have to spend a lot of time in designing supply chains which are circular. For example, I heard Mr. Ashutosh talk about how a byproduct from one industry can be used as an input for the next industry, right? For example, I visited this Denmark-based industrial park called 𝗂𝗺𝗃𝗃𝗃 way back in 2013. So Ørsted, you know Ørsted? You at least heard of the scientist Ørsted, right? O-E-R-S-T. So that's the largest powerhouse, that's the largest power producing company in Denmark. So fly ash is what? Soda ash or fly ash is the output. That is used for making plaster boards by another company. Right? So the whole industrial park has like 25 different companies working together in collaboration. So the whole design is going to, the whole design of that is going to come from the ability to go back to the drawing board. I think this team here should be able to do that. Of course, there's a lot that we can talk about in terms of scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, a lot that we can talk about in terms of logistics best practices. Right? For example, how many empty miles is a truck moving? Can we do backhaul? Can we do bundling? Right? All those are some of the areas that we can talk about. I think the one thing that will constantly continue to be there is VUCA, right? Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So I think the ability to understand, so how do you really, if somebody asks you, how can you actually evaluate what risks are there in this kind of supply chain? I think that's something that most of the companies are grappling with, right? What is the reason that you don't anticipate what is the type of risk the company is facing? What is the key reason do you think? Some?
Geological region can be one factor.
Sorry?
A geological region. Like
Yeah.
if I am operating in India, like how can I forecast what is happening in Australia or
Yeah.
like US?
Yeah. That's a great take on that. Anything else? I'm saying my question is, how do you predict that this risk is going to come up? Right? On what basis?
Historical data.
Past data.
Yeah, historical data, absolutely. Then macroeconomic trends.
Economic trends, geopolitics.
Yeah, geopolitics, right? As VLMP, what can you do to be able to contribute? Come back to a CEO and say, boss, in the next 1 year, I'm seeing this risk for you, which will have a tremendous impact on your cash flow. It will have a tremendous impact on your bottom line, on your top line. What is it? See, I've seen 100 different companies in the last 15, 20 years, right? Companies have not even mapped out who are their level 2 suppliers, who are their tier 3 suppliers, where is that thing coming from, right? It can be a small ring that you are getting somewhere from Estonia. You don't even know such a thing exists in your supply chain. It could be a glue that you are getting from France, right? It's a C-class item, you don't even know, but your whole supply chain will come to a grinding halt without that, right? So the whole mapping of end-to-end supply chain is something that you guys should be, so it needs a lot of curiosity. Why is it coming from there? Can I change it? Can I make something, can I change the source, right? All these inputs you'll get when you map supply chain end-to-end. That's where you will understand what is the level of exposure. You will understand what is the level of vulnerability that your supply chain has, right? Once you know that, right? For example, chip manufacturing, it has fire risk. Do you know that? You'll know that some of these chip manufacturing companies have fire risk. You'll have to understand where is the probability of fire more, right? So that means and then you continue to monitor. And then you mitigate that by kind of anticipating. So there's an art to it, but more than that, there is a science to it. And I think this science is something that I can talk about for more time, but I think the opportunity that you have is to look at customer changing trends, the seasonality, the trends, macroeconomic trends, etc., and then look at mapping supply chains end-to-end. I think that's one of the fundamental things for any business. I will not spend a lot of time. What I just wanted to share with you is that you have your manufacturing operations management, right? So you have supply here, you have demand here. This is on the Gartner model, which I very closely follow. These are my views, but I just this table below. There is source, there is sense here, right? You have gathering data, plan, code. So it's all about planning, right? Your ability to sense, which I talked about when I said mapping end-to-end, and your ability to respond, which is in response. So there is a lot of interoperability that manufacturing has with customer data, with inventory data, with distribution logistics, right? With of course core manufacturing is here, and then with suppliers, then the way finished products move through the chain, right? Now, what do I mean by autonomous supply chain? And of course, we heard a lot about Gen AI, we heard about agentic AI. So what's the? So I'll tell you my perception. I heard this from one of my customers recently. Right? He said, I use ML to tell me that if I'm going to Chicago day after tomorrow, it's going to be the weather is going to be like this, right? So it's going to tell me it's going to be rainy, it's going to be sunny, it's going to be pretty cold, right? It's predicting. Now when I go to Gen AI, it's going to tell you have this type of jacket. I think that will help you. You have this type of jacket based on what you've taken in the past. It has your data also, right? What is agentic AI? So I've given you ML and then AI, right? Gen AI. So what is agentic AI in that sense? It will pack the core clothes for you. It will pack it for you. That is, it's taking an action, it's perceiving the environment, it is executing it, it's taking a decision to execute something, then it will execute it, right? Perceiving, then deciding, executing, and then it learns from it. It's cognitive. Yeah, right? So in supply chain, in future, a lot of work that we are going to do is going to be autonomous, it's going to be touchless, right? If I look at the SCOR model again, I talked about in the morning, a few minutes back, right? Plan, source, make, deliver, and aftermarket. This is the complete cycle. What can data help me? It can help me in predicting demand. It can help me in detecting risk. It can help me in optimizing what can you, for example, if I'm planning, it can help me in something here. It's like it can help you in optimizing several things. One of them is inventory. So this question mark here can be inventory. It can recommend any stock rebalancing, right? It can help you in exception handling. Similarly, if it's sourcing, right? So it can recommend what? If you're sourcing from suppliers, it can recommend alternative suppliers, right? So the future supply chains are going to be more autonomous, able to respond faster, automatically become more resilient. Yeah? Okay, I finish in 2 minutes. And I think I'm still taking lesser time than we are here. Okay, some examples that I want to share with you. I think it will help you to know this, right? One of my customers in Spineware, right? A company which has spinal implants, right? So they have 10 different types of implants for the 95th percentile human, right? They don't know whether they have to keep. They have 250 hospitals in Texas, right? For example, right? They don't know how many of each to be had in the warehouse, right? So when a spinal implant is removed and put on a patient, right? You click a button there, it's a sensor like IoT we spoke about in the morning. It will send out a signal to the warehouse to pick up that particular type of spinal implant, right? Because you will have an important operation tomorrow, but you don't have that spinal implant. So the ability to be able to use IoT sensing mechanism to have demand forecasting for these spinal implants, right? Have you heard of this company? How many of you have heard about this company? So Xometry is an on-demand manufacturing company. So the greatest strength that they have is if you want to get a coffee mug, right, with your name on it, have VLNB, and maybe below that you have your girlfriend's name as well, for example, right? You say that this is what I want, right? They'll give you a quotation in the next 30 minutes as fast, and then they'll tell you you will get this product, the coffee mug, in the next 11 days. So some of these very unique type of manufacturing processes, lithography, that this is all done by Xometry. Just go and check it out. It's pretty cool actually. And you heard of the HP Instant Ink program, right? You already know about it. Maybe I don't have to speak about it. Anyway, I'll not go into it in depth. But I think what is very important for all of you here is to realize that this program, as Professor 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗶𝗁 used to say, is to move from small m to big M. Right? And what it means is that this program is not like the 2-year, I'm not saying I have equal respect for all the programs that are being run, but this program was run with a specific intent. The intent was, how do I cross-pollinate different industries? How do I help industries? It's not just production, right? That was the kind of thinking that we had. And this is a very brilliant class here, right? You are all problem solvers. So think that you are trying to solve a problem for a company. Define the problems, right? Problems are, I'm not able to get enough cash flow. See, all these problems are related to a business problem. Don't think about this as something very technical, right? The problem is with all of us engineers is that we only think technical. It's very important to look at business, look at ways in which you can leverage your strengths for improving either cash flow, ROI, profitability, so on and so forth. So focus on how do I become a trusted advisor, how do I become an entrepreneur, And I want you to fill up some of these gaps here, right? How can you be a catalyst for those 18 different arenas that I talked about, right? I've left this presentation with you. Look at those 18 areas. Look at what clues you'll get in the next 6 months to 9 months to be able to map. I know it's very difficult to say, hey, here is what I'll be in 2035, right? But at least you get an idea as to where you can potentially reach, right? So I think you have the ability to be also innovation enablers, right? And of course, CEOs of the future. I think it's very important that you start thinking out of the box, because this program, Professor 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗶𝗁 envisaged that this program will help you cross that chasm of death, as he used to say. So I think that's something that I just wanted to leave with you. Any questions? As long as it's easy, I can take it.
Sir, my question is that you talked about JIT and SHIT.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know the science, because I worked with Vedanta in commodity business, and we were unable to make JIT for our process. So, and it is actually also not feasible, because in the morning, Ashutosh sir also told that if we do not receive material on time, the pots will shut down.
Yeah.
So, like, what is the science? How
I
should
think-
commodity business think?
I hope I had an answer to that, because your question revolves around something which is very, very difficult. You already answered it. You can't see it. The problem is, it is about culture. Right? A lot of this is about culture. So you have to build your why. Why do you want to do it first? That's the core. And then what you want to do it and how you want to do it. Right? The core is why. Do you want to really do it? Do you want to really? Do you think JIT will solve your problem?
It might reduce the holding cost.
You don't know, right? So it's case to case, but the question is, it's not just about doing it and doing it right. You may do it right, but still not be able to realize the benefits, right? I think it's all about culture is one thing, and then we are also going to talk about digital transformation in some time, right? I think it's very the focus should be on value realization. I think value is the first thing. Did you realize value because of this? If you are sitting here, think about dollars always in your mind. What I would say. Any other question? Let me know if you have further questions. I'll be happy to. Anyway, I feel it's VLMP to VLMP, so the equation is very simple. You can reach out to me. Akshay is there. He's been interacting with me in a phenomenal way. Akshay and Deepak. Right? And sorry if I made you feel asleep. That is, your lunch was better than this. That's the only thing. Okay, thanks.